things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner, is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? Real or just illusion, manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
This is My Life DIY, and
hi, this is JoJo.
Hi, my name is Ash.
Hey everybody, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson.
This is your man Meta, aka Propagate This Light.
And you're now listening
to Dark Wolf's Den.
The Dark Wolf's Den Show on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Are ghosts real?
We had 1,000 hours of continuous communication with the spirit world.
Does time travel actually exist?
The laws of physics seem to be compatible with time machines.
You know, sometimes I wonder about reincarnation. Don't you?
A 4-year-old boy in Adelaide, Australia, has told his parents that he used to be Britain's Princess Diana.
What would happen if the world found out that aliens were real?
I didn't say disclosure would be easy, but what is the alternative?
To establish a space force as the 6th branch of the armed forces.
We have so many questions and yet so little time, so to have you here, the pleasure is all mine.
Coming to you from a secret mountain cave, hidden deep within the Idaho wilderness. This is the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are broadcasting live worldwide from a secret mountain cave hidden high up in the beautifully snow-covered peaks of the Idaho mountains. That's right, ripping through the electromagnetic soup, tearing through the atmosphere, and tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to dive deep into the wet, watery, wild world of mermaids. That's right. Could they be real? Could it really be a creature, half human, half fish, that resides in the oceans of our world? Lord knows there's a lot that we're finding new every day. Or is it just a myth and legend? We're going to dig into all that more here in just a moment, but first, today in history. On this day in 1815, the world's first commercial cheese factory was established in Switzerland. That's right. I wonder if they made Swiss cheese first, right? Anyway, that is today's Today in History. I know, ladies and gentlemen, that was kind of a cheesy joke, right? We got puns all night, all right. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, with those cheesy jokes aside, I would like to congratulate everyone that stuck with us through the month of January. If you listened to all of those episodes and kind of interacted along and really paid attention to the information, then you have officially passed the course on philosophy of consciousness. That's right. Go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back. You might even want to go ahead and print yourself out a certificate that you are now officially a philosopher on consciousness. That's right. That has been so much fun for me. But this month we're going to switch it up a little bit. Since we've had, 4 months of topics that have been themed, October, November, December, January. Yeah, 4 months of topics that had themes. So we're going to kind of do different themes or different topics this month. We aren't exactly going to have a theme across the month. And we're just going to have some fun with it like we used to. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that said, we're going to start out with one of the first episodes that I did, which was on cryptids. And the mermaid, I would say, is definitely a creature that would fall into the category of cryptid. A half-human, half-fish creature that lives in the waters of the world. That definitely, to me, is considered a cryptid creature. And let us remember that a majority of creatures that we nowadays know as real were considered mythical and cryptid at one time. Up until 1902, the gorilla was considered a mythical creature. So let us not discount the idea that there's much in our oceans that we do not know about, and there could be much, much more in the world that we're yet to even discover. But how did the idea of mermaids get their origins? It's not a new idea. Mermaids actually go back a very, very long time.
Let's begin in the way back. Way, way back. One of the earliest documentations of a fish person comes during the classical antiquity time period, or 7,000 to 8,000 BC.
7 to 8,000 BC. We're in 2000 AD right now, so you're talking 10,000 years ago. There were stories of fish people.
Atargatis is a goddess of Syrian origin whose worship spread through Greece and Rome and further. She is a great mother and fertility goddess of the earth and water, considered the main goddess worshipped in Syria. She is often described as the mermaid goddess and is pictured as such, though she was also pictured with legs on many occasions. This, of course, falls into the category of myth. Did she actually exist? Were there first-hand accounts of her ruling? Do you think myths are merely stories, or is it possible they were created with some hints of history? I suppose that's for you to decide.
As always, we merely ask the listener to listen to what we've got to present and judge themselves, of course. But the important part here is the fact that we've heard this many, many times. These myths turn out to be just a little bit more than myth, especially when you really start to dig into them and you find them across multiple continents and cultures that are not supposed to have any connection at all.
Fast forward a few thousand years to the 5th century AD. In the book Physiologus, written and compiled in Greek by an unknown author, there is a portion dedicated to the nature of the mermaid. This reads much like a warning, as if the writer knew of what they spoke. The following is an excerpt. In the sea there are many marvels. The mermaid is like a maiden. In breast and body she is thus joined. From the navel downward she is not like a maid, but of fish very certainly with sprouted fins. This marvel dwells in an unstable place where the water subsides. She sinks ships and causes suffering. She sings sweetly, this siren, and has many voices, many and resonant, but they are very dangerous. Well, that certainly sounds like a descriptive warning. The writing continues on to tell of havoc the mermaids wreak on unsuspecting sailors.
Again, quite a descriptive answer for somebody who's never seen a mermaid. They sound quite positive in what they were describing.
Continuing forward to 1493. That's right, it's good old Chris Columbus. Just prior to his infamous voyages to find stuff and things, he chose to include the most intriguing entry to his diary. Quote, "The day before, when the admiral was going to the Rio del Oro, he said he saw 3 mermaids who came quite high out of the water, but were not as pretty as they are depicted, for somehow, in the face, they looked like men." As you've probably already been told, the accepted answer to this was manatees. Manatees, though cute, have faces that more resemble a puppy than any human I have ever come in contact with. If you look like a manatee, I am very sorry.
And I get it, being out at sea may play tricks on the mind, but I highly doubt that manatees are being confused for mermaids. That is one answer that I've always really laughed and scoffed at, because, I mean, come on, we know scientism comes up with some goofy stuff, but mistaking a manatee for a mermaid, that's a completely different thing. You're talking about mistaking something that looks like a whale for something that looks like a human. Yeah, I'm not going to buy that answer even for half a second. That's about as good as the swamp gas answer that he used to give the UFO guys, right?
And although there was no mention of hair in his journal entry, manatees are always bald. There are no species with long flowing hair. And one final problem with the manatee hypothesis, they didn't and don't exist in the area this admiral spotted them.
Yeah, the fact that manatees don't exist in that area really does put a big hole in the manatee theory, doesn't it? Especially also, like she mentioned, the fact that most mermaid stories include the long flowing hair, and manatees are bald.
So why did he choose to write about it at all? Why would he have not just written down he had discovered a new species of a large fish? Why would he simply believe his admiral? Were they overly tired? Hungry? Not able to reason? There are so many questions left unanswered. Again, we jump forward in time to 1608. Dearest explorer Henry Hudson, whom the Hudson River, the Hudson Strait, and the Hudson Bay were named after, had the strangest visitors when searching for a northwest passage near Norway in June of 1608. He recorded in a private log, quote, This morning, one of our company looking overboard saw a mermaid, and calling up some of the company to see her, one more came up, and by that time she was close to the ship's side looking earnestly upon the men. A little after, a sea came up and overturned her. From the navel upward, her back and breasts were like woman's, her body as big as one of us, her skin very white, with long black hair hanging down her back. When the mermaid finally went down under the waves, her tail was observed, which was that of a porpoise and speckled like a mackerel. Well, now that was some creative writing. I suppose being out at sea for extended periods of time would make you long for the likeness of a woman, but do we assume that all members of a ship hallucinated simultaneously from their lack of lady love? I think we need some more proof.
And in this case, you've got, once again, multiple witnesses witnessing the exact same thing that looks like a human with long flowing black hair. I don't know of any sea creature that has long flowing black hair, and not even a manatee for that matter, especially not a manatee. But it's intriguing that you have multiple eyewitnesses this time, not just one person that said they seen something. These are very credible seamen who are reporting seeing this creature, this mermaid, and we'll actually circle back around to the Norwegian mermaids here shortly.
We've transported now into 1830 Scotland. Technically, this story was first written down in the early 1900s and published in one of the town's newspapers. The story reads, quote, "Some 70 years ago, people were cutting seaweed in Bimbecula. Before putting on her stockings, one of the women went to the lower end of the reef to wash her feet. While doing so, she heard a splash in the calm sea, and looking up, she saw a creature in the form of a woman in miniature, some a few feet away. Alarmed, the woman called to her friends, and all the present people rushed to the place. The creature made some somersaults and turned about in various directions. Some men waded into the water to seize her, but she moved beyond their reach. Some boys threw stones at her, one of which struck her in the back. A few days afterwards, this strange creature was found dead nearly 2 miles away. The upper portion of the creature was about the size of a well-fed child of 3 or 4 years of age, with an abnormally developed set of breasts. The hair was long, dark, and glossy, while the skin was white, soft, and tender. The lower part of the body was like a salmon, but without scales. Crowds of people, some from very long distances, came to see this strange animal, and all were unanimous in the opinion that they had gazed upon a mermaid at last. Mr. Duncan Shaw, the sheriff of the district, ordered a coffin and a shroud to be made for the mermaid. This was done, and the body was buried in the presence of many people, a short distance above the shore where she was found. There are still persons living who saw and touched this curious creature, and who gave graphic descriptions of its appearance." End quote. This seems like a very specific account with multiple witnesses. Is it easier to assume the entire village in cahoots to create such a creature, or that she did in fact exist and was murdered? But that's a different story.
And as she just pointed out there, again, we have multiple eyewitnesses, a whole village full of witnesses in this case, including the sheriff of the town. So they all witnessed this. They all seen and witnessed and made account of a mermaid that is literally buried somewhere around this particular town. But now that we've established that there is a multitude of case files going back thousands of years, let's now move on to the fact that there's multiple cultures across the world that never ever interacted with each other, but yet they've all got different versions of the mermaid. And I told you we'd circle back around to the Norwegian mermaid, and that's where we're going to go right now.
Rusalka. A rusalka is a mythical Slavic water nymph resembling a beautiful young woman. Similarly to a Greek siren or a Celtic mermaid, rusalki have long hair and a ghost-like appearance owing to their translucent skin. Originally, rusalki emerged from the water during the spring and danced in the moonlight. Their dancing resulted in crops being watered, earning the creatures a benevolent reputation. In Slavic pagan mythology, rusalki represented fertility and rarely interfered with human life beyond their crop watering activities.
Aha! Have you guys caught the pattern yet? There's a word we've heard a number of times already, and that is fertility. It seems like these legends of mermaids all seem to focus around them being some type of symbol of fertility, which I also find intriguing because, again, cross-cultural, and these cultures weren't supposed to have met.
There is a dark side to the legendary creatures, however, and by the 19th century, Rusalki had somehow become known for harassing humans. They're also believed to be the spirits of girls who suffered violent deaths. Some Rusalki were once women who became pregnant out of wedlock and jumped into a water body, such as a river or lake.
Now, actually, I think there might be something to that. And here's the reason why. Little known fact, ladies and gentlemen, did you know that when you're born, you don't have to breathe air until you breathe air? Think about it. You are in the amniotic sac the whole time that you are being developed. And even when you are right about to come out, you're still in this fluidic sac. And until you breathe oxygen, your lungs don't need oxygen. Think about that. So if there's water births, especially over multitudes, and these creatures become, and I say creatures, they become creatures, the human body is adaptive, right? And if enough times this happens, the adaptivity will come into place. And if we did, as creationists say, come from the ocean to begin with, then it's already coded in our genes that the ability to grow fins or sea-like appendages could still be coded in there somewhere in what they call the, quote, junk DNA. And if there was the ability for these babies to be born enough in the water and actually be able to survive, and perhaps generationally they could, grow these appendages back out and become merfolk. Now, do I think that's 100% possible? No, but it is definitely, in my opinion, plausible. So there may be something to this idea of the pregnant women jumping into bodies of water and creating merfolk. Just saying, it's an idea, it's a theory that is actually based and rooted in science.
Another version of the myth points to a Rusalka's origin as being any type of unclean human soul. Rusalki are thought to frequently lure men and children to their own tragic and watery ends. One way Rusalki trap their victims is by entangling the unfortunate target in their hair, so be very careful when swimming, just in case.
Yeah, that might not have been seaweed tickling your feet.
Selkies. The word Selkie means seal in the Orcadian dialect of Orkney, Scotland. According to legend, the Selkie folk, or seal people, are commonly sighted in the area near the shore as seals with their heads bobbing above the water, displaying uncannily human-like eyes. They appear along mermaids and sirens as sea-dwelling folk in Scotland, Ireland, the Faroe Islands, and Iceland. Selkies are shapeshifters. In the water, they live as seals. When they travel onto land, they transform into graceful, beautiful humans. In doing so, they shed their seal skins, which they return to once they decide to become seals again. If the seal skin is stolen or lost, a Selkie is trapped in human form until it is recovered, so Selkies tend to quickly snatch up their skins and return to the sea when they are spotted on shore. In some legends, Selkies are able to transition into human form once a year, usually on Midsummer's Eve. Other myths report the transformation as occurring every 9th night or every 7th stream. When in human form, Selkies are known for sunbathing and dancing in the moonlight along the shore because, what else are they doing? According to legend, Selkie women made wonderful wives, but after some years, they would yearn for the sea and wish to return, so their husbands would hide their seal skin so they would have to stay. If a woman wanted to find a Selkie man, she could go to the sea at high tide and shed 7 tears into the water. Male Selkies are rumored to be extremely handsome. In fact, there are numerous stories of male Selkies shedding their seal skin, heading inland, and targeting lonely wives. If a woman disappeared, it was believed she must have been kidnapped by her Selkie lover. These stories are always sad and end in romantic tragedies. They never have a happy ending.
That one is a little bit strange to me. I gotta say, I've never heard of the sealskin shape-shifting mermaid. That's a little bit weird, not gonna lie. But it kind of reminds me of the idea of the reptilians, right? Shapeshifters. That's just weird.
The Merrow is the female version of an Irish mermaid. Merrows have long green hair and wear a special cap that enables them to live underwater and travel along currents. It is believed the cap is red and covered with feathers. Unlike some conventional mermaids, Merrows have webbed fingers and flat feet. In some ways, however, they're similar to the half-human, half-fish creatures of traditional siren mythology. Despite their undesirable features, Merrows are considered exceptionally beautiful. Merrows are known for having an antipathy towards humans. In other words, they're generally not friendly, with the exception of their affairs with human men. These creatures abandon their special clothing when they come ashore, and any man who acquires these items gains power over the Merrow who owns the clothing.
So guys, if you're walking down the beach and you find a bunch of women's clothes, go ahead and start picking them up. You might have power over the Merrow, right? That's different. I've never heard that legend either. I'm actually learning a lot here. I thought I knew about mermaids until I did this show. Turns out I didn't know nothing about mermaids. Not to the degree that we're learning tonight. But as I mentioned earlier, there's also mermen, right, Katrina? By the way, the voice we're listening to is Katrina from Origins Explained.
Mermen, the male version of the species, are rarely seen. They're rumored to be frightening and homely, with scales, pig-like features, and long, pointed teeth. In fact, one of the reasons Merrows are promiscuous among human men is their alleged fear of mermen. Can you blame them?
So the mermen have pig-like features, scales, and sharp teeth. That doesn't sound like a handsome individual to me at all. That doesn't even sound like a creature that I want to run into in the ocean, right? But think about how likely it is that these could exist, right? Think about how deep our oceans are and all the crazy creatures we find that do live there. And, I gotta say, some of the strangest creatures I've ever seen have been ones that have been found in the ocean. Like the one that carries the little light bulb on his head and got the big ugly sharp teeth. I mean, if God can create something like that, or the duck-billed platypus, then there's nothing out of the realm of the idea that there could be half human, half fish creatures, especially if you consider the idea that we did maybe come from the oceans to begin with.
Like the Selkie, stories of the Finfolk come from the Orkney and Shetland Islands in Scotland. They are dark and gloomy sorcerers that would emerge from the water, and depending on how they felt, they could punish people with terrible storms or keep the seas calm. Finfolk are shapeshifters with exceptional boating skills. They are capable of transitioning whenever they want, unlike the Selkie folk, whose options are more limited. Given their shape-shifting freedom, Finfolk are amphibious, dwelling among both land and sea, and can come and go as they please. They could disguise their long fins to look like gowns and cloaks. These nomadic creatures spent their winters in a majestic, luxurious city called Finfolkaheme. The location of this city is unknown to humans, but is thought to be at the bottom of the sea. Finfolk spend their summers on dry land in Orkney. Their summer home is said to be on a vanishing, magical island called Hildeland. According to some versions of the legend, Hildeland was eventually stolen from the Finfolk and renamed. Finfolk have a reputation for stealing humans from their spouses and turning the kidnapped victims into servants. To escape from a Finfolk, simply throw a silver coin or object at them. They have an affinity for the precious metal and will likely dash for it, giving you a chance to flee.
So now that's interesting. You've got the shapeshifters coming up again in two different cultures. Because remember, the first was Slavic, and this is a completely different culture. This is what, Scottish, I think she said, but interesting just the same. So we've got shape-shifting, then we've got Finlandheim they had a home island of their own that was magical and couldn't be found by humans, and then was taken over. That reminds me of another story that comes out of Ireland of High Brazil, the magical island that would appear and disappear. So it's really interesting that it does cross these different lines. Now, Scottish and Irish, yes, they are close, so I can see them being tied in together most definitely, but it still doesn't explain the Slavic connection either.
Mami Wata, or Mother Water, is a beautiful and seductive water spirit celebrated through much of Africa. She's a highly respected deity who is often represented as a mermaid, a snake charmer, and sometimes both. She is often shown like most mermaids with the bottom half of a fish and the upper half of a woman. Mami Wata is paradoxically feared and worshipped, and therefore represents a balance between the dark and the divine. She's also a shapeshifter, possessing the ability to transform into virtually anything she wants to be.
And here, once again, we have the shape-shifting ability showing up. In Africa, yet another culture that really shouldn't have had contact with any others, but we have the same type story.
The history of Mami Wata in myths can be traced as far back as 4,000 years, to the earliest societal beginnings in some parts of Africa. Her name also stems from the early languages of many modern African societies. For example, in the Ethiopian Coptic language, the word mama connotes truth and wisdom, while Uwat-Ur means ocean water. In early Sudanese society, the word wata meant woman. She always has long, healthy hair, but her facial features change depending on the society who depicts her. There are alternative names for Mami Wata among various African societies, and she also has an established presence in other parts of the world, including the Caribbean and parts of South America. Mami Wata's job is to provide her worshippers with spiritual and material healing, as well as to protect their mental and emotional health and growth. She also protects women and children, is a provider of fertility, and wealth and riches.
And again, you've got the fertility connection. So we've got multiple connections to multiple different cultures, all in the same story.
In addition to the fortune she gives, Mami Wata is also capable of great evil and is known to exploit unsuspecting men for her own sexual satisfaction. Only after an encounter does she reveal herself, after which the unfortunate victim must pledge his faithfulness to her or die. If he's married, his family may also suffer. She has a terrible temper and jealousy issues, so if she feels rejected, beware. Mami Wata is so highly respected, some tribes refrain from going to the beach or nearby waters on certain days for the sake of not disturbing her at home.
It amazes me how many cultures not only speak of these creatures, but fully believe in them. Some of these tribes, like it said, won't even go near the water on certain days, just not to disturb these creatures. And it's really interesting, again, that across all these cultures, you have the same creatures representing the same things, fertility and having the ability to shapeshift. Now, it makes you wonder, with all these different creatures and all these different cultures saying the exact same thing about these creatures, it makes you wonder if they aren't actually reporting what they're seeing. And speaking of reporting, we are sad to report the first half of the Dark Wolf's Den show has come to an end. So we've got to take a network break right here, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be back with the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den show right after these messages. Don't you touch that dial. That's right. Oh, yeah.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Hi, everyone. It's AJ, the Ripon Rabbit. Guess what? Your weekend has officially begun. Give yourselves a round of applause for being smart enough to be here. If you're enjoying tonight's look at Dark Wolf's Den radio show, Mermaids, and you haven't done so already, please make sure to thumb up that video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. You'll get our notifications every time we go live. Jerry will return again tomorrow night, Thursday, February 5th, as he dives down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theory. Join him as he howls in the Dark Wolf's Den at Conspiracy Theory, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then join me Friday night as I return with the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show with an episode of Looking Up. We'll explore how to keep looking up and why it's important to do so. Then Saturday, February 6th, come along with me as we dive down the rabbit hole and think like an illusionist. That's right, an evening of magic and illusion with special guest, Master Magician Jason Byrne. You will not want to miss one moment of this. Jason is the real deal, and he's going to come on and talk about it with you. Saturday, February 6th, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then we'll end out the weekend together right with the February edition of the fantastic fun show. Love is in the air for our February installment. Who will be the fantastic fun king or queen? Will my life DIY stay seated on the throne, or perhaps will somebody knock her down and take the crown? It's Super Bowl Sunday, February 7th, 2021, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. All shows start at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, and I can tell you, Super Bowl Sunday is going to be a big deal here at the Ripon Rabbit Hole with the fantastic fun show, the greatest interactive game show on air, with the number one rule: there are no rules. So join us and participate in family game night. It's going to be a lot of fun. Speaking of fun, we return you back to your host, Jerry Hicks, and the Dark Wolf's Den radio show right here on the very best of Common Sense Radio, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. Visit us online at RIPONRABBITHOLE.com.
This is My Life DIY, and
hi, this is JoJo.
Hi, my name is Ash.
Hey everybody, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson.
This is your man Meta, aka Propagate This Light.
And you're now listening
to Dark Wolf's Den.
The Dark Wolf's Den Show on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome back to the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den Show. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad that you chose us to be right there with you. So far tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have talked about mermaids, the origins as far as they go back almost 10,000 years. And we've heard about even more recent accounts of these creatures. And then we heard later in the first half how these cultures across the world all have different stories of mermaids. And I could not believe my luck as I was putting this show together for you guys. I ran across a video on YouTube that had just dropped by Zohar Stargate Group. If you don't know that YouTube channel, definitely check it out. But the topic of the video happened to be mermaids, or do water people really exist? And like I said, I couldn't believe my luck while I was actually putting a show together on mermaids that this would come out. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to carry on with Mr. Simon Hensby.
From August 1973 to December 1974, Gary Oppett, the original writer of this article, dwelt amongst the living wonders on the world's largest tropical island, New Guinea. Studying the flora and fauna with biologists at the War Ecology Institute, lecturing on ecology at the Lay Teachers College, and living with Stone Age tribal people.
So it sounds like he has both a lot of academic accreditation as well as having just the life experience of being around these things like the flora and fauna of Papua New Guinea.
He wrote as follows. Between the 2nd and 7th of October 1973, I was travelling on the Papuan Explorer, a 340-ton vessel carrying cargo along the northern coast of Papua New Guinea, between Lai and Vanimo, delivering supplies and a few passengers to Wewak and Aitapi. During the 5-day voyage, I spent much of my time identifying the marine life that included large fish, sharks, rays, spinner dolphins and seabirds. On the 3rd of October, around midday, I observed directly in front of the bow a round, dark head on the sea surface that looked more human than anything else. At the approach of the vessel, the creature's head suddenly submerged straight down beneath the water.
And it amazes me how many times in these stories we've heard that they see the head, the human face, the human head with the hair and the whole 9 yards. Of course, he didn't mention hair here, but very clearly was looking at a human head. And I don't know of any creatures in the sea that I would mistake for a human face that would come up that close to the top of the water.
As if it had pulled itself under by the use of its flippers and tail. I was standing near the bow, and as we passed over the animal, I obtained a clear view as it sank vertically about 2 meters below the surface. I saw a dark head and an elongated body pulling itself straight down through the clear water by the use of its tail. It was human-sized, though I could see no sign of arms or fins. I wondered if it may have been a dugong. I was unable to come to a conclusion as to what the animal was.
And for those that don't know, a dugong is a type of dolphin. I actually had to look that one up.
Sometime later, I was talking to an elderly New Guinean man from a coastal village near Aitapi and was questioning him on his knowledge of the local fauna. After he listed the usual common species that he had encountered during his long life in the area, he began to describe a marine mammal that he had only once encountered. He and a friend were fishing off the coast in their dugout canoe, and upon hauling up their net, which was unusually heavy, they brought to the surface a most remarkable animal. It had a round, dark head just like a person, with large eyes, and breasts like a woman's. The rest of the body looked similar to that of a dolphin. They were so amazed at bringing such an unusual animal to the surface, and concerned that it looked so human, that they immediately released it into the sea. I was incredulous and told him that it must have been a dugong. He told me that it was not a dugong because they regularly caught and ate dugongs, and that this was quite a different animal altogether. I could not believe that I was receiving a description of a mermaid, and I told him that such an animal could not possibly exist, and that he must have heard the description from a missionary and was then pretending to have observed one himself.
I admire the skepticism of the person that wrote the article, I will say. But with that said, after I've had an encounter and somebody else describes to me the same thing I had an encounter with, I won't think I would be as incredulous, but I mean, just the same.
To my surprise, my informant became indignant. He was clearly upset that, although I had been eager to hear of the animals he had encountered over his many years, I refused to believe his encounter with an aquatic animal that resembled a human. It was as if I had questioned his integrity.
And it's that type of reaction that really makes me believe that the native, if you will, was definitely telling the truth. When he was questioned about it or told that he was probably, mistaken, he was very upset. In other words, you know what you know, right? When you see something, it doesn't matter what anybody else tells you, you know what you've seen, right? And that's what it sounds like in this guy's case. He only seen it once, but he knew what he's seen. He got very upset when he was told that that's not what it was.
I apologized to him and described the strange animal that I had observed. I still found it hard to believe that I had encountered a mermaid. 8 years later, I was amazed to read that others had also encountered the New Guinea mermaid.
So there's 2 eyewitnesses in that case, and then one of the eyewitnesses finds a volume of other eyewitnesses that have seen the same thing. Now, how many eyewitnesses does it take to say that someone is guilty, right? In a court of law, how many eyewitnesses do you need before you get a guaranteed this is what happened? Well, how many eyewitnesses do you need to something paranormal before you can say, yeah, that really happened? Like, look at UFOs. UFOs for years. They tried to tell people that they weren't seeing what they know they saw. The Mandela effect being yet another one. People know what they know, and it doesn't matter what they tell you. We know what we know, right? And the same thing with mermaids. When you've got that many people who said, I seen the exact same thing, and none of these people know or met each other, you have to look at these case files with more of a curious eye as to it being more truthful and in reality than something that somebody made up.
In Volume 1, 1982, of Cryptozoology, the interdisciplinary journal of the International Society of Cryptozoology, there is a paper by Roy Wagner, head of the Department of Anthropology, University of Virginia, entitled The Rye, Unidentified Aquatic Animals of New Ireland, Papua New Guinea. Wagner was studying the local people and their culture during 1979 to 1980, when he discovered that they were all well aware of a scientifically unidentified marine animal variously called rye in Baroque, Ilkai in Susuranga, and Pishmari, Pidgin English for Fish Mary, Mary being the word used for woman.
So this head of anthropology notices that all these different cultures, again, you've got different cultures with different languages and different names for this same creature that they're all encountering. So even he had to, as an academic, step back and take another look and say, wait, what is happening here?
They described the rye as an air-breathing marine mammal with the head, trunk, arms and genitalia of a human, though the lower trunk was legless and terminated in a pair of lateral fins or flippers. The females had obvious mammalian breasts and a body covered in human-like skin, paler than that of the dark-skinned Melanesian people.
I find that extremely intriguing because you've got the difference of the culture that's there and the skin color of them opposed to the skin color of the mermaid that was seen. That's a stark difference. You know, it's not like somebody in the tribes playing around or somebody in the culture is playing around. It's clearly something 100% different than what they are used to culturally, right?
The fingernails were long and sharp, and the palms of the hands were deeply ridged and calloused. The face was somewhat monkey-like, and the mouth was unusual and fish-like. They lived largely in shallow water, chasing, catching and eating fish, and they slept on sandbars and deserted beaches. They are particularly distributed around the central and southern shores of New Ireland and the straits between the islands of Bucca and Bougainville in the northern Solomon Islands. The Ree also exist further west around Manus Island and off the north coast of New Guinea, where fishermen at Aitapi have caught them in nets.
You know, that is a lot of detail from the different cultures, the ability to even map out where these creatures have been seen and sighted, and the fact that they are sighted in the general same area, I mean, relatively speaking, the same area of the world. Now, I find that extremely intriguing that there's enough information there to actually draw out a map of where they're all actually being sighted at and what they look like, and just so much detail there for something that, quote, does not exist, end quote.
When Wagner asked the local people why they had not shown the animal or reported its existence to the colonial administrators and other authorities, they replied, "But you people know all about the Ree. You put pictures of them on your matchboxes and canned goods."
I gotta say, I do like that answer, right? Why would we tell you? You appear you've already seen it anyway. You already know what it is. Look, you've got pictures of it everywhere. Why would we say anything? Clearly you already know about it. Love that answer. And I wonder if they actually did it on purpose or if it's just by chance people use the mermaid. I mean, look at Starbucks, for instance. they use the mermaid as their logo, their slogan. So, I mean, it makes you wonder, if it comes to a culture like that, as to, well, why didn't you report it? Well, heck, you guys already knew. Look, it's everywhere. Love that answer.
Roy Wagner found that the Ree were well known long before the arrival of Europeans, and that, like all species of animal that coexist with them, they hold a special place in the cultures of these islanders, who have stories that explain the creature's origin. The Nakela clan of the eastern coast of New Ireland regard the Ree as sacred animals, or tadak, tutelary spirits, and whenever one is killed or found dead, the Nakela hold a mortuary feast for it, in their men's house. In their creation stories, the Ree came into existence when a Nakela troupe was performing a dance at the morning feast of Kabar. The percussionists made a serious blunder, bringing irreparable shame upon the clan. Their souls turned into the Ree. Roy Wagner was shown a Ree swimming in Ramat Bay on the eastern coast of New Ireland, though all that he could see was a long, dark body swimming horizontally at the surface several hundred meters away. His informants told him that after it finished fishing, it would display its head and hands to those on shore to show that it too was human. Previously, an adolescent female Ree had been accidentally caught in a net and hauled to the back of the beach.
There sure are a lot of encounters with this thing for something, once again, that doesn't exist, right? And they've even got feasts for it if they find one dead on the beach. Like, come on, this is apparently a normal thing to find one dead, to even, set a feast in motion to begin with for that. You don't usually start a tradition unless you have a reason to start a tradition.
The fisherman went to get the plantation manager and left 2 boys to guard it, but they were too frightened to grab it when it broke loose and crawled back into the water. A village magistrate told Wagner that while fishing out at sea, he had observed a Ree rise to the surface and look at him from only about 6 meters away. Wagner was told that the Ree can be kept alive out of water and that one was held in captivity in a men's house for several weeks.
And that's something we don't normally hear with the mermaid tales. Mermaid tales. Haha. Anyway, that's something we don't normally hear in the case files, is that they're able to stay alive out of water for very long. So that's interesting. It's one of the first times I've heard them out of water for a multitude of weeks and surviving.
A 10-year-old boy described to Wagner how he had once observed a line of male, female and juvenile Ree swimming up into a freshwater stream by moonlight. Furthermore, he explained that it was a common sport for schoolboys during the December to January vacation to dive offshore with glass face masks in order to catch glimpses of Ree.
Once again, if this is just a belief system, it is in every part of the culture, from the adults to the kids to the elders. They all know and have seen this creature. And I guess if it was something that was local to your area that you had seen all the time, or, your culture knew about, then it would be no big thing, right? It would be a normal thing to you. And to these boys, it was something that they did for summer fun. Apparently, all the boys there did that for summer fun. And I would assume it's summer, if you're swimming. I know they said December, January, but it's only cold in certain hemispheres at certain times of the year. But anyway, that's getting off topic. Point is, these young boys even get to the point of going out and trying to search for them in the times of swimming. So, from adults to kids and all the way down the line, they all know about these creatures, these mermaids.
The Susarunga people at Nakon use the name Ilkai for this same animal, and describe it as having a human-like upper torso and head, with the eyes set to the front of the head. The mouth was said to be protruding and peculiar. The arms were fused to the sides of the body, and the pseudo hands served as flippers. The legs were fused one across the other, terminating as flippers instead of feet, which provided aquatic propulsion. The zoologists concluded that the animal's rapid movement, its consistently extended duration of submergence, its consistently extreme vertical flexure, and its predatory behavior eliminated the possibility that it was a species of finless dolphin or a dugong.
Now, that is important. it absolutely eliminated the possibility that it was a dugong that they spoke about earlier.
In February 1985, an expedition by the author and 12 other members of the Ecosophical Research Association aboard the 65-foot diving vessel TSMV Reef Explorer. They travelled 1,000 nautical miles from Port Moresby to New Ireland, and, calling into villages along the way, they found that all the people they contacted knew of the existence of the Ree, or Pishmari, as it is more generally known in Pidgin. Unlike the slow-moving dugong, the Ree was always described as rapidly swimming marine mammal with a remarkably flexible body and an ability to remain underwater for very long periods. I next found information on mermaids in Richard Carrington's 1957 book Mermaids and Mastodons in Chapter 1, The Natural History of Mermaids. The earliest naturalist to describe the mermaid in any detail was Pliny the Elder in his Natural History, which appeared in the 1st century AD. By the 17th century, the existence of the mermaid was generally regarded as an established fact.
I don't know if you guys caught that, but he said in the 17th century, mermaids and mermaids existing was an established fact. It was known, it was accepted that, yeah, those are real. Yeah, you go out and go in the ocean, you're gonna find a mermaid. I mean, it's an established fact. People didn't even question it because they'd seen them so many times.
For mermaids were regularly being observed off the coast of Britain, and travellers would bring back tales of them from many parts of the world. There is a description of a mermaid in A Discourse and Discovery of Newfoundland, London 1620, by Sir Richard Whitbourne, a sea captain from Exmouth in Devonshire, England, who made many voyages to Newfoundland. Now also I will not omit to relate something of a strange creature, which I first saw there in the year 1610, in a morning early, as I was standing by the waterside, in the harbour of St. Yons, which very swiftly came swimming towards me, looking cheerfully, as it had been a woman. By the face, eyes, nose, mouth, chin, ears, neck, and forehead, it seemed to be so beautiful, and it was those parts so well proportioned, having round about upon the head all blue strakes, resembling hair, down to the neck. But certainly it was not hair, yet I beheld it long.
And once again, another matching description that we've heard all evening of this same top half human, bottom half fish creature.
Richard Carrington also noted in his book that in the 17th and 18th centuries the mermaid was being regularly observed in the eastern islands of Indonesia, then known as the East Indies. Dutch colonial chaplain Francois Valentin included a detailed description in his book The Natural History of Amboina, Dordrecht and Amsterdam 1724 to 1726, of the Zeemenschen, seamen, and Zeewijven, sea women, and recorded a mermaid encounter near Amboina, Ambon. I may say that I know for certain that in the year 1652 or 1653, a lieutenant in the service of the company saw two of these beings in the Gulf near the village of Henetelo, in the administrative district of Amboina. They were swimming side by side, which made him presume that one was male, the other female. 6 weeks after, they reappeared in the same spot, and were of a greenish-grey colour, having precisely the shape of human beings from the head to the waist, with arms and hands, but their bodies tapered away.
Now, one difference that we have noticed across some of these case files is some of them have arms that are extended out, others have arms that are pretty much like still attached to the body, so or as fins even. So there is a small differential in the types of the creature, but it's nonetheless an upper human torso and a lower fish torso. And again, it's not strange that we find a deviation between them all, because I mean, look how many deviations there is between regular humans on land, right? But is there any recent encounters or relatively recent encounters in modern times of mermaids?
In mid-2009, dozens of people reported sightings of mermaids close to the town of Kirvat Yam, near Haifa, Israel. According to Israel National News, 12th of August 2009, one witness, Shlomo Cohen, described his observation as follows: "I was with friends when suddenly we saw a woman laying on the sand in a weird way. At first I thought she was just another sunbather, but when we approached, she maneuvered into the water and disappeared. We were all in shock because we saw she had a tail. At least 5 of us saw it and we all couldn't believe it." Kirvat Yam Town Council is offering $1 million reward for anyone who can prove the existence of a Mediterranean mermaid. Council spokesman Nati Zilberman told Sky News, 11th of August 2009, "Many people are telling us they are sure they've seen a mermaid, and they are all independent of each other."
And that is, once again, extremely important, the fact that they were all independent of each other. And I like the fact that they even mentioned that in the investigation there, because, I mean, the fact that they're all independent of each other, they don't know each other, and they're all reporting the same thing, makes you have to look again and not just dismiss it out of hand.
People say it is half girl, half fish, jumping like a dolphin. It does all kinds of tricks, then disappears. Are mermaids aquatic hominins? From the observations of mermaids over hundreds of years, the descriptions of the animals reveal that there may have been, and perhaps still is, an aquatic species of hominin. Perhaps like ourselves, the mer beings evolved from a chimpanzee-like species that spent so much time foraging in the water that it adapted its body to a wholly aquatic lifestyle. On the other hand, it may well be our nearest relative, a true aquatic human that evolved from semi-aquatic humans that gave rise to our species.
And of course, the theory that I presented earlier sounds kind of like a mix of both of these theories that he just presented.
Although this may sound unlikely, it must be remembered that the oceans are teeming with marine mammals whose ancestors were terrestrial species that adapted themselves to a marine existence. Marine mammals are warm-blooded and the females suckle their young. Some species have reduced the 4-legged hairy body into a sleek hairless body with a fin and tail flukes. Porpoises, dolphins, whales and seals all evolved from a dog-like carnivore. Sea otters evolved from a ferret or weasel-like animal. The dugong and manatee evolved from an elephant-like herbivore, and one species was elephant-sized until it was hunted to extinction in relatively recent times. These species have lost much, most or all of their original hairy covering, and in its place is skin with a subcutaneous layer of fat. Humans also have a fat layer beneath our skin, and this is unique amongst primates. The largest populations of humans are to be found along the seaside or by lakes and rivers. We still possess slight webbing between our fingers. The pattern of hairlines across our bodies exactly parallels the way the water flows across it while bathing. We have a large hooded nose instead of a pair of nostrils like most other primates. Imagine what would happen if a monkey or an ape tried to dive or swim underwater. Of course, the water would run straight down its nostrils. But if a hooded extension arose to cover the nostrils partially from water, which comes sweeping down across the forehead and face as one dives or swims, the problem would be greatly alleviated. The only other species of monkey that has a hooded nose, the proboscis monkey of Borneo, is also the only other semi-aquatic primate. Humans are, in fact, partly aquatic. This is the reason why we love to swim. The original ecological niche that we chose long ago as our favourite place to live was the water. Perhaps our closest living relatives still swim in remote regions around the islands of New Guinea and New Ireland, and in other localities across the vast oceans of our planet.
And I really gotta say, he makes a very good case for the possibility that it could be an offshoot or type of hominid species like humans that never left the water or went back into the water. There is a lot of good evidence to suggest that just looking at the human form itself. And I suggest just one more theory, and that could be the fact that it could be aliens, right? I know, hear me out. I know I just said aliens and we're talking about mermaids, but think about it. If a species came here and could exist outside of water for a certain amount of time, but was fish-like or come from a planet that had a lot of water around it, then it's a good possibility, if they were able to create tech eventually, that they could, once they get here, have to be in the oceans, or could even have crash landed here and have to remain in the oceans for the majority of the time. Perhaps it's as close to their home as it could be. It's just a theory, but what do you guys think? Do you think it could be aliens? It's never aliens, right? But do you think it could be aliens? Or do you think it could be a species of mankind that split off before us? Or even a species of mankind, perhaps, that decided to go back into the water and not stay out? Or even a possibility of the pregnant births just, accidentally creating a subspecies in the water. There's so many questions to get to, so few answers, but in the end, ladies and gentlemen, all you got to do is look at the evidence, listen to the case files with an open mind, apply a little bit of common sense, and then you be the judge. We got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, the den may be closing for this evening, but don't you worry, we will return tomorrow, Thursday, February 4th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, with an all-new episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Show. That's right, tomorrow night we're going to cover a very serious topic, a topic that in today's day and age especially needs to be touched on, and that is conspiracy theory. That's right. I am looking forward to discussing that with you guys tomorrow night. And from the origins to how many have been proven true, it's going to be an incredible episode, that I can guarantee. And then after the den closes on Thursday, our buddy AJ the Ripon Rabbit takes to the airwaves Friday through Sunday with a Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. That's right. And it's definitely a weekend you guys do not want to miss. We've got a lot of special things coming up this weekend, starting with Friday, February 5th, 2021. AJ the Ripon Rabbit's going to be talking about looking up. He's going to explore the many, many reasons it's important to keep your eyes to the skies. And I happen to know that he may be joined by a special guest. We'll have to see how that works out. Then on Saturday, February 6th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, AJ the Ripon Rabbit will be back with another episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. This time he's going to be talking about thinking like an illusionist. As you guys know, he has practiced magic for many, many years, and it's definitely going to be interesting to get his take on thinking like an illusionist. He's also going to be joined that night by special guest Jason Byrne. It's going to be an evening of magic, illusion, and lots of fun, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you tune in for that Saturday, February 6th, 2021. Then on Sunday, February 7th, 2021, ladies and gentlemen, it is the most fun you can have on radio. That's right. With the Valentine season in the air, tune in for a Valentine's Day special episode of the Fantastic Fun Show. As we know, Heather My Life DIY is the current current reigning queen, and her and CSFL champion have been going back and forth over who is going to possess the crown the last time. And maybe you can jump in and steal it from both of them, ladies and gentlemen. All you got to do is tune in Sunday, February 7th, 2021 to the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show and interact with a fantastic fun show, an interactive quiz show for the whole family. And at the end, there will be a king or queen crowned. And that is on the Ripon Rabbit Hole. That's right. Speaking of the Ripon Rabbit Hole, make sure you pop over to the riponrabbithole.com. That is RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. That's right. Over there, you're going to find a ton of fun. First off, you want to make sure you sign up for our newsletter. That's right. We send out a newsletter once a week, every week on Wednesdays, letting you know what our topics are going to be for the entire weekend. We remember here on Ripon Common Sense Radio, we have a 5-day weekend and a 2-day work week, just the way it should be. That's right. While you're over at the riponrabbithole.com, also make sure you jump down the rabbit hole. That's right. That is our social media alternative where the conversation doesn't end. As a matter of fact, the conversation is only beginning down the rabbit hole. That's right. Make sure you come on over and sign up for a Backstage Pass and enjoy all the perks included. Also included is the 24/7 Backstage Lounge. That's where you're going to find me right after this show, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you come on over and hang out with us. We will be hanging out back there for the rest of the evening. That is the 24/7 Backstage Lounge on the riponrabbithole.com. That is RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. Also, before we go, earlier today, ladies and gentlemen, I had the pleasure of joining my team members with the International Mandela Effect Conference, and we did a 2-hour live stream over on that YouTube channel. So if you get the chance, do make sure you go check that out. Myself, Cynthia Sue Larson, Christopher Anatra, and Shane Robinson of Unbiased and On the Fence. We had a wonderful time over there, and I think you guys will have a great time listening to it, especially if you're into the Mandela Effect. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Musco, Walt House, everybody at Ripon Common Sense Radio, AJ the Ripon Rabbit, I'm Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and remember, until tomorrow night, ladies and gentlemen, stay awake, but dare to dream. How? Yeah, that's right.
Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the a sinner? Is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.